we were sort of, I guess, given more opportunities to experiment, I guess, which is super positive because, there's no rule book for COVID and what's going to work and what's not going to work. And so we were given ample opportunities to try new things and just give it a go and see how you went.
This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Not only have airlines, cafes, restaurants and caterers taken a huge hit from the pandemic, but the hotel industry has been left reeling too. With a heavy reliance on travellers, what impact has border closures and no international tourists had on the operations of hotels? Shannon Craig is the General Manager of QT Canberra. Shannon, how are you going?
I'm very well, thank you. And you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for joining us. It's been a pretty crazy little time in the hotel industry. What's it like at the moment? Canberra's fared pretty well and people can travel again. Give us a picture of how the hotel is operating just at the moment.
Lots of green shoots at the moment, actually. We've had one case, I guess, in the last 3 months, so it's given everyone a bit of confidence. Occupancy-wise, we're still struggling a bit as everyone gets their heads, I guess, back round to travelling commercially. Canberra's a fairly corporate town, I guess we call it, corporate and government, so we're heavily reliant on that business. So, but we've got some meetings again this week, which is really great, and the restaurant continues to tick on, and our occupancy is up in the 40s, so that's pretty positive because in the beginning it was much less than that.
Well, take us back to that time and the sort of impact that the lockdown had on the hotel, because it's not just beds, there's restaurants, there's all sorts of staff. Can you paint a picture of what actually happened to the QT?
I can. Canberra was, I'm going to say, late to the party in respect that we were still quite busy. There was still some travel going on in mid-March, where a lot of the capital cities had already seen some quite big decreases. But even the week starting the 16th of March, and I remember it fondly, we were still quite busy. We had a residential conference in-house that came with 100 rooms, and it was pumping actually. And then the announcement came from Prime Minister's office saying that as of the 23rd of March, restrictions were coming in, and look, there's not really any other way to say it. We fell off a cliff. For us, I think the first. I guess there's accommodation cancellations coming in, but I think the first sort of major impact, or the thing that we felt the most, was, we had millions of dollars of conferencing booked in advance, and some of those events, the guys work 12 to 18 months to develop relationships, and obviously there's lots of other suppliers involved. So to watch them go through that process, especially of those first couple of weeks of understanding, what the situation was, and then, putting about as much time and energy as trying to, postpone and sometimes just straight cancel, business that they'd worked so hard for. So that was probably the most devastating, I guess, in that first week, because it was so obvious that this was going to be not a short-term situation.
How many staff did you have at the time, and was there an impact on staffing levels given what had just happened?
We had about 210 on the books. We have a huge amount of casuals here at QT Canberra because we do have massive conferencing, and obviously conferencing changes and varies, and we need different numbers, so we flex there. So, without pointing too hard a picture on that, but, that whole part of the business just disappeared completely. So, we fairly quickly had to get down to a reasonably skeleton staff through, stand hours, and there's simply not being work for casuals. It was a pretty awful time. We had, we're a fairly decent sized company, so we've got a risk team, so we had a lot of good support and good information. And our line was initially that the general managers made all the communications to our staff, which I think, is pretty special, and I tried to get hold of 200 and something people. That's not always that easy, especially, some of them only work, once every couple of weeks. But I think that was a really good line to take and really good culturally for the teams to get to talk to me, I guess. Yeah, yep.
You're used to running a rather large hotel. What was it like for you at that time trying to cope with those circumstances as a general manager?
It's tough. I think the thing about the hospitality industry in general is that we are actually used to a fair bit of change and a fair bit of flex. So that doesn't make it easier, but I think our mindsets are, every day is different and things fluctuate wildly. So I think that helps. I guess it takes a bit to comprehend, to get your head around how long term this is going to be, what we have to put in place to, protect our staff and our business. For me, I guess I had to slow down a little bit. Used to having lots of things on and lots of people around, and interestingly, my husband's in construction and his life did the complete opposite, so kind of that was quite an interesting I guess change in relationship, and credit where credit's due. My husband does a lot of cooking because he gets home generally earlier than me, but I sort of picked up the cooking, and he says the caliber's gone up, so I'm pretty proud of that. So yeah, I guess you just sort of life slowed down a bit. A lot of you need a lot of I guess recovery time and good sleep and fresh air and those sorts of things, and exercise to make sure that you're the best that you can be when you're dealing and talking to a group of your team that are going through some pretty awful circumstances personally and professionally. So yeah, a lot of Shannon time.
You mentioned a bit earlier that you're only now at about 40% occupancy rate, and that's a real positive. What did you do early on to pivot and get money through the door? I know you've got one of Canberra's best restaurants in the hotel. Can you paint a picture of the sort of things that you guys did to get money coming through the door?
Look, I think we all gave a few things a try, and one of the things that we did do was takeaway. Obviously, we still did room service because we could still service the few guests that we had in house, but we also did takeaway. We set up a bit of a deli and tried to sell some of our wines too. We've got a fabulous, huge selection of wine. I mean, I think realistically, that was never going to make any kind of dent, but it was really important to keep, the team that I had here, who are, high performing, managers mainly, engaged and interested, and giving them projects was kind of one of the things that was keeping them, getting up in the morning and feeling that they were still contributing, because that's, I think, one of my learnings is usually we're all so busy and they've got enough demands that I don't need to put additional ones on there. But during that period, to be fair, that was more about engagement, I guess, and remaining engaged with the community too, so that they knew that, we'd made a decision fairly on that we were going to keep the hotel open regardless. And just letting them know that we're here and we're trying to look after, the staff we've got, and we're it's important to stay here. Yeah.
You mentioned that a lot of the clientele that you get in Canberra are business people and the government sector. Did the clientele of the restaurant change and the restaurant model change? Can you take us through what happened?
Yeah, yep. The restaurant model did change. I mean, we do have a fabulous local following, and we're so lucky. And when we made a decision, we didn't reopen the restaurant on the first round. We waited until we could seat 50, just because at a time, because that's the sort of restaurant and style of service that we wanted to keep. We didn't want to change too much, but we did have to change manning a little bit, and we changed the menu. We're used to a really big menu here, and we did have to, minimise the menu a bit. But that said, we decided to do specials, so there was still a lot of offering. But the local support that we got as soon as we opened is just, such a testament to the team, and I guess to the QT and the amount of time this sort of building has been here. We're basically doing in the restaurant, similar numbers than we did prior COVID. We have shortened the opening times. We're not trading out of the restaurant on a Sunday and Monday, so I guess that's how we pivoted a bit to make sure that that there was some profit still or breaking even still involved, as opposed to, we really had to look at what our trading periods were and when we were going to be most likely to be profitable. But so lucky. There have been nights where, I've had 20 people staying in the hotel and we've done 80 for dinner. Very, very well supported, feeling very, very lucky for that.
That focus on local, and has that changed, do you think, what the model of a hotel of your type will be in the future?
I think, indeed, I think we have some pillars, and one of them is loved by locals. So it has, as part of the QT chain, been very important, because we do try and have these, not standalone restaurants, but these restaurants that do stand on their own without the accommodation rooms. And I think, obviously that's not the case in all hotel chains, and it certainly has carried us through this period. So I definitely think that, people seeing this model work will certainly be looking, that way in the future, because it has been, it is quite clear that loved by local, pillar that we have has done us amazing things over this period.
I know you've spent some time working in the UK, but how did you get a start in the hospitality sector?
I always wanted to work in hotels. How's that? I used to travel. I was very lucky. We did a bit of international travel when I was fairly young, and I loved staying in hotels. I just loved them. Loved the uniforms, loved design. Loved. I still walk into a hotel wherever and read the compendium or look at it now on a screen. I always sort of had that passion. And I remember when I was 16, we had a meeting with the high school dean about what we wanted to do, and I said, I want to run hotels.
Wow.
And I committed fairly early, I guess, and then I've just kind of gone with that. No, I love it. Just love it. Yeah, still absolutely love it.
I know I just sort of briefly touched on it. Can you tell us about your time in the UK and the influences that it had on you as an operator?
Interesting in the UK, because we're not a brand or a chain in the UK. We just had the one hotel in Kensington in London, and Kensington is also an area where there are lots of boutique hotels, and because it was 80 rooms and in a beautiful villa, it was seen a bit as an independent. So I guess that was a lot of learnings there, is again, getting your own reputation and market. So many fabulous experiences in London, obviously, amazing restaurants, calibre of staff, just experience-wise. Just in general, such a privilege to be in London, obviously before COVID, but also, in a great job and being able to see London and experience London. and come back with ideas too, because obviously some of the top brands in the world are based in London and New York, and so just going into some of those properties and looking at those products was a really good experience. I think a lot of those 2 years in London were research, and I did get given a few research projects for the company while I was there. So it was really educational time. I really enjoyed it.
Well, Canberra might be the capital of Australia, but it really is a small country town compared to London. What's it been like being in Canberra coming from London?
I think it depends to me, I guess, a bit on the job. This is a big hotel, and it's got a lot of conferencing, a cellar restaurant, some amazing staff. So to me, the job here is big, and I love that. So I guess the quieter time that comes from being in Canberra is not a bad thing. Also, some fabulous restaurants, as you would have, I'm sure, gone to some now, and some really great things to see and do in Canberra. But I don't mind the difference, just because the job is it's a big job, and it requires a bit. So the quiet time's not bad.
Well, let's have a look at that. What does it actually take to be a general manager of a hotel?
Oh, I think in all hospitality, whether it's restaurant or travel and tourism, I think you just have to love it, because it's truly unpredictable. I mean, prior to 2020, it's a very unpredictable industry. Your days change, and that's what I love it. I love I love not knowing exactly what the day is going to bring. Obviously, we have a set of tasks, and I love that. At sort of this level, a lot of my time is developing my team and supporting them and ensuring that they've got everything they need to be awesome, I guess, and to do what they want to do and to get where they want to be. Like I mentioned, we do have a really strong calibre of department heads here, and they're all very different, and leading them, I guess, is what gives me, I think that's the most important part of my job, leading them to do their job really well. Aside from that, I think hospitality management is still a lot of contracting. Someone asked me what you'd study to get into hotels and hospitality management, and I said, probably study to be a contract lawyer, to be fair, because everything you put out contracts, you get in contracts. That's sort of what you spend a lot of time doing. But I think it's passion. It's just it's loving it. It's enjoying the challenges. It's being flexible and liking being flexible. And listening, I guess. Yeah.
This time has challenged many and forced everyone to rethink how they do things. Have you changed the operations of the hotel, and if so, is that sort of change that you'll keep moving forward?
I guess the changes that we make, the expectation is long term, is so that we change things for the better, so that they work for the future, because I think the market's changed, and like I say, historically Canberra has not been a huge leisure-driven town, but there's no reason for that, and we're working very hard with ACT Tourism and the Bureau and Australian Hotels, so to remind everyone that there's fabulous things to see in Canberra, aside from the one school trip that I think everyone had to do in year 6, I think it was, and to put it on their leisure agenda. And to be fair, after the fires, etc., of January, ACT Tourism and Tourism Australia had already decided that we really needed to go down this path of holiday locally and holiday here. So I think that's one thing that that we've had to work out how we appeal more to that market, perhaps, than we've put time and energy in before, we really need to make sure that our services, suit that part of the market, and that people are going to feel that they want to come to Canberra and stay in our beautiful hotel and see all the fabulous things in Canberra. So that's one thing. The restaurants, I guess, another thing that has been going fabulously for a long time under, a fairly set sort of way to do things, and we've absolutely had to flex that so that again we're more profitable with nights closed and bits and pieces. So we've had to change again our menus there. We obviously want to continue to use the best suppliers. So it's not a price driven, it's more an offering so that we can still offer all that fabulous, produce without, and run a viable business. And I think the team, they, have gone back a little bit back to their roots, because there was a time where there was only a few of us and everyone sort of had to do everything. And I think that's a really good thing. That's a really positive reminder that we all started somewhere and we all have to do everything. And I think that changes how we work together as a team. So yeah, I think all the changes, there's not really much that I think we're going to come back from. I think we've got to, anything we implement, we have to have with the theory that this is how it is now, business-wise, and go from there.
You mentioned how important conferencing and events has been, and some of the massive events that you've had to cancel or postpone because of the pandemic. How do you feel about that part of the business and events and conferencing just generally moving forward?
I think that people are always going to want to get together, and I think initially we talked a lot about how everything would be on Zoom, but I think we've had enough Zooms to last us a lifetime. How everything would go to people sitting in different rooms, but I don't know about that, because we've found, especially as we're going into November, which is traditionally a bit of a awards season, that we've picked up award functions. People still want to get together. So look, I think that travel budgets are going to be cut everywhere, and I don't think a lot of them, they're not going to just get put back in because business is trading, normally. Like, that's just not how businesses work. You think, if we've done fine without this huge travel budget, we'll continue to. But I still believe that, people meeting face to face is going to be, forever. I think you can't, and I think it's kind of shown that the COVID's shown that we can do a lot of things without seeing each other, but we kind of still want to see each other. So it'll be a slow process, and I think it'll take some time. I think it'll take a lot of time to get back, because like I said, some of those big events are 12 and 18 months in the making. And there's a lot of confidence that has to come with that, and travel and bits and pieces. So it's going to be a long, slow process, but I think people still want to see each other.
You mentioned that you've always wanted to be a general manager of a hotel, which is astonishing for a teenager. How have you felt about your career during this time with the pandemic first landing? Was there any other thoughts that you may have to change your vocation?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, there was, yes. Yep. And those are tough thought processes to have. I've always done. I was in restaurants for a bit. I spent a little bit of time in audiovisual, and then hotels all my life. So yeah, the thought of changing that is a little bit scary. I think the one thing is that if you've got solid management skills and leadership skills, that should get you into most other industries to a degree. So yes, I did think about it. I even thought I might just go back to university, Huck, but Go study something else. Go be a lawyer or something else. But yeah, I guess in the back of my head, you know, you always think it's got to come back. It will come back. It's just time. And you know, we've got time. Let's just go. You know, let's just wait it out because it's going to come back.
You mentioned you quite enjoy the quiet times that you have in Canberra, even though you have a high energy job. And also that, you know, there might be a heavy reliance on sort of local tourism, given the circumstances that we've just had of this year. Can you tell us what you love about Canberra and the sort of places you love to eat? What's so great about it?
I love Canberra because it's got, you know, for a country town, as we refer it to, it has such a huge mix of people, I guess, because of Parliament, because of, you know, some of the best universities in the country, because some of, you know, the top corporates, you know, head of business are based here. It's very energetic, you know, in business wise for a small environment, and I love that, and I love the level of, you know, passion and quite high education in Canberra too, just because of the amount of universities, etc. here. So you can always get into a great conversation / debate with anyone. I'm out in Sutton, which is, you know, out past the Federal Highway there, and so I like to go out to the vineyards and the restaurants on the vineyards out there. So that's kind of my and in Gundaroo, and, you know, and that sort of that's what I enjoy. There are so many great restaurants here, and you know, and walking distance, you know, from anywhere. But, you know, I don't go out too much because I don't mind cooking when I've got time, and I'm pretty fussy with produce, and I'm pretty spoilt here, obviously. So yeah, I tend to, when we go out to eat, it's generally an occasion, I guess. I'm probably, you know, your occasion diner. Otherwise, I'm happy cooking, or you know, my husband's happy cooking and having a great glass of wine with dinner.
Things are picking up, and occupancy rates are going higher, and summer is coming. What's your hope over the summer period for the hotel sector and the QT?
I'm hoping that some of the regional travellers and also some border openings, that, you know, that Aussies get in the car and do a bit of a tour. I think there's lots to do, and it would be great to, you know, to see some more families and some more young couples and some more, you know, nomads travelling through Canberra over summer. I mean, I think without international flights available, there's a huge amount of opportunity, you know, if we attack it the right way, to you know, to get people through, because everyone needs a break, and lots of businesses still shut down over Christmas. So, you know, we're hoping to get some of that leisure tourism through. You know, even if it's on the way to the bays or et cetera, but generally January is fairly quiet in Canberra, but we're sort of expecting it not to be as quiet, just because people can't go that far. But a couple of border openings would help.
It's been a pretty interesting year, and you've had quite a few challenges, and the hotel sector is still reeling from this pandemic. But has there been some positives to come from these circumstances for you?
Lots of positives. I think it's important that we always find the positives, because they're the learnings. You know, as I mentioned, my team have sort of got back to roots a bit more. They've certainly got closer. The importance of, you know, of those relationships, you know, have been really evident while, you know, everyone's looked after each other as well as the business. You know, there's been a lot of growth in that. Again, I think we are quite good at flexing, but it just, you know, made us sharper, quicker, and we were sort of, I guess, given more opportunities to experiment, I guess, which is super positive, because, there's no rule book for COVID and what's going to work and what's not going to work. And so we were given ample opportunities to try new things and just give it a go and see how you went. So that's good, because there's been team members that have, never been in as much of a position to, just give it a go. Let's see how we go. And I think the industry in general, I think has got to have got closer. I mean, Canberra's a fairly small place. We all know each other in hotel land, as they do in restaurant land. And we're connected anyway, but I think just this need to look after each other has been, more important, and the communication has been really open, so that, everyone's got all the information and everyone's, sharing information, so that we can try and get through this as quickly as we can, with as few, disaster stories, I guess, as possible. So I think there's a closeness that's been super, super positive.
You've got a pretty handy chef there at QT. Josh, what's something that you're enjoying on the menu there at the moment that people could come in and enjoy?
Oh, that's tough. I like no. I look, I love our oysters. I love the oysters. Obviously, we have fabulous relationships with local suppliers, so we have great oysters. And then, we're doing a swordfish, which I love seafood, and which is interesting from the girl that runs the fairly heavily steak focused restaurant. But I do love my seafood, so I think our meat is always very, very good, to the extent that I don't often buy it to cook at home, because I can never quite get anything we can get here. But yeah, the swordfish, I'm loving the swordfish, but I mean, that's just such a personal preference. I do love seafood.
Well, Shannon, we've loved having you on Deep in the Weeds. Good luck, and hopefully the occupancy rates boom this summer and we can sort of get back to relative normality. Please keep in touch, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you, Huck. And a quick congratulations for today for making an honourable mention on Gourmet Traveller. I have to mention that. Well done.
Thank you. We're very chuffed and very surprised and honoured for that, but thank you. This is the Deep in the Weeds podcast. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of Australia's hospo community, suppliers and producers in search of hope during this pandemic. Special thanks to executive producer Rob Locke for making this all happen. Follow us on Instagram at Deep in the Weeds Podcast, or email us at podcast@deepintheweeds.com.au. Stay safe and be well.